Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing really well. If you're new here, then my name is Heather and I'm a professional viola player living and working in the UK, and I make videos just all about professional musician life, freelance life and everything that surrounds that. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, then please do give this video a like, subscribe to my channel to see more from me, and just check out some of the other videos on my channel because I've got a fair few up there and I've already had a couple of requests for stuff that I've actually already done. So yeah, check out my other videos and let's get into it. Now, I do want to say right off the bat that I absolutely got this idea from one of TwoSetViolin's videos. So I will have their video linked in the description bar below. But I thought it could be a really good one to do a UK equivalent of. Now, of course, those guys are based over in Australia, so most of their answers to the questions are obviously kind of Australian conservatoire kind of based, if that makes sense. So I thought it could be quite fun to do a UK version, and I couldn't find anything like this for the UK. But if anybody does know of any other videos that are UK based, please do let me know and I will absolutely link them below because they may be talking about different colleges and all that kind of stuff. For a bit of context, I did my undergraduate Bachelor of Arts degree at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama in Cardiff. So my answers to some of these questions will be quite specific to that institution. But having a lot of colleagues and friends that went to other colleges all over the country, a lot of these things are quite universal and kind of the same. So I hope that sort of helps for a little bit of context. So question number one is, do you have general lectures or are all classes music based? So we had, all of our lectures were music based, but the way it kind of worked is that as you went through the degree, so it's a 4-year degree, you could sort of tailor it more and more to what you wanted to go on and do, if that makes sense. So in first year, we had harmony classes, we had oral classes, we had choir, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then in second year, a lot of that actually dropped off, which personally I kind of thought was a shame because I actually kind of enjoyed them. There we go. And then by third year, you could start picking what modules you were doing. And at that point, you could kind of specialize a little bit more, whether you wanted to focus on chamber work or if you wanted to focus on teaching or outreach work or solo work. And then by fourth year, you could kind of specify down again, if that makes sense. But yeah, all of our lectures were music based. What grade do you need to be to get into music college? So to my knowledge, all the music conservatoires in the UK require you to have grade 8 on your chosen instrument or equivalent. And I bring up the equivalent because that's actually what I had. So I have my grade 8 violin. I actually didn't have grade 8 viola. But because the viola and violin are kind of seen to be fairly compatible, that was okay. So yeah, you need to have grade 8 on your chosen instrument or an equivalent, but then you also have an audition process. So I think if you didn't have the grade 8, but you had other qualifications of a similar level, then I think you would probably still get an audition, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But if you are somebody where you're like, I play to a very high standard, but I've never taken grades, get in touch with the college. It doesn't mean that you are immediately out by any stretch of the imagination. If you can prove that you are of a sufficient level to get an audition, then I would have thought that would be possible. I love this next question. Did you always agree with your teacher / lecturers because music is so subjective? No. Is the very short answer. I never massively disagreed. I had some pretty big differences in terms of how I thought learning was the best for me between me and my first teacher. He had just, he had his method, and his method didn't exactly suit me, and there wasn't a lot of dialogue there. It was a little bit more just worked it harder kind of, vibe. And then I definitely had a couple of comments in performance classes which I didn't agree with at all, or I had made my reasons for doing them very clear, but then they were like, well, you shouldn't do that. And I was like, well, my teacher and I both think I should, so so yeah, of course it happens, of course it does. And I even had a comment on an exam that I was quite upset by, because basically they would have gone for a very different stylistic choice and they didn't really seem to respect what me and my teacher were going for. So yeah, it obviously happens because music is a subjective subject, but equally you learn so much from people being like, why are you doing it like that? I would have done it like this, because you may well go, I would have never thought of doing that. That could be interesting to try, or good for you. You do that, I'm gonna do my own thing. So yeah, it can be really, really interesting. But yeah, short answer, no, I did not always agree. How much on average do people practice each day? Completely, utterly varied. On average, I was told at the very start of my music college experience that 21 hours a week was the absolute minimum. So 3 hours a day effectively was the minimum you would need to do in order to succeed. And I would probably agree with that. I think a lot of people did more than that. But then, I mean, you have people who go to the absolute extreme and do like 8 hours a day, but I very, very, very strongly doubt that it was a good 8 hours of practice, because you can't concentrate for that long. And so, yeah, I would say it was in between about 3 and 5 was probably the average. What's the admission process like? Do you have to audition? Yes, you do. So for most performing arts degrees of any kind, there is a audition, because they need to make sure that you are of a sufficient playing standard to be able to keep up with the general level and also the exams and all that kind of stuff. So yes, there was an audition process, and for some colleges there are 2 rounds of auditions. Now, when I was auditioning at the Royal Welsh, so I auditioned in 2010 for a 2011 admission, and there was just the 1 round. That may have changed, I don't think it has, but some of the other colleges did require a 2-round audition. So yeah, it does vary between the colleges, but there was always an audition. So for the audition, you would go in and you would play your pieces or whatever they had asked for that audition, and then there would be like a little interview process, and that was a part that I always kind of enjoyed because, as we know, I like talking, and it's just an opportunity for you to ask questions as well and make the most of that time, because I don't think I did quite. I think I could have asked a few more questions that would have just set me up better for joining the college. So ask the questions you want, feel free to write them down and take them in with you. You know, you're going to be a little bit nervous probably, so, and they'll totally understand that, so don't worry about, you know, bringing things in with you. And then in my audition I also had like a little listening test section, which I think is probably one of the big reasons I got in, because I always enjoyed those kind of oral listening tests. So yeah, that was actually quite good fun. I kind of enjoyed that. But yes, so playing, interview, and then sometimes a bit of a listening exam test as well. How do you cope with comparison to others? Now, I quite miraculously managed to avoid this at college. I think I was fairly in my own bubble. I didn't really take too much notice of what was going on around me in terms of what marks people were getting and all that kind of stuff. I think the only time it really hit for me was I completely messed up my placement auditions to go in and have a placement with an orchestra, which I'll talk a bit more about later. And I completely messed that up, and so I didn't get any placements. Absolutely fine, but I think that was the first time, that was in 3rd year, and that was the first time that I really kind of went, oh, like, they got it and I didn't, and it was absolutely deserved. But I think that was the first time that I really struggled with that, because I think there were a couple of people in my year who were very like, what mark did you get? What mark did you get? And they wanted to know. But on the whole, people kind of kept it to themselves really, and just sort of, you know, if you wanted to tell them you could, but if you didn't have to. And I did really, really like that. So I think my main advice is that everybody joins the college at a different level and different stage. So there were people in my year who were a few years older than me who had joined the college, you know, a little bit later. They were applying a bit later, and that had meant that they'd gone through some training in that meantime. They'd had lots of different lessons, they'd done stuff, so they were at a higher level from the off. And then everybody kind of, you know, goes up and down, and some people will have a really good year and some people will struggle. And I think you become such a close-knit cohort because there's so few of you that you're kind of cheering each other on kind of by proxy anyway. So yeah, I think for me this wasn't a massive issue. I know that some of my friends really, really struggled with it, and I think the best thing that you can do is just get your blinkers on, get your head down, focus on what you're doing, make sure that you're doing enough, and just remember that there are so many more important things that need your energy. And if you take on all of the stress that music college can give you, you won't make it through. You will just have a complete breakdown. So just focus on you. And I know that's what everybody says, and it's so hard to do sometimes. But if you need to either, you know, practice at home so that you're not listening to everybody around you, or maybe you need to not be practicing in the room next to the person who is that maybe you're comparing yourself against. Little things like that can be really helpful. So yeah, I hope that is semi-helpful. Did you get injuries? Yes, I did. Well, it was a reoccurring injury. So when I was doing my A-levels, I was also practicing extremely hard because I had music college coming up. And going from this kind of playing motion to this writing motion and doing that for hours and hours a day, I gave myself tendonitis in my right wrist. And this resulted me in being in a brace and being in quite a lot of pain, and that flared up again in my third year. And I remember we were doing Carmen at the time, and now Carmen is one of my absolute favourite operas to watch and to play. So much fun. Anyway, but I was leading the violas for it, and it was me and my friend Dara, and we were just, you know, we were having so much fun, and I didn't want to pull out the project. So I had cooling pads like strapped to my wrists and then like bound around, basically to get me through the performances. So I do not recommend that. That is not a good idea, because it is now a constant reoccurring injury that I have to be very aware of. I recently had to get some more treatment on it. So yes, if you do get injured, then please listen to the medical professionals and take it easy. If you need to step away from a project, do. It isn't the end of the world. I know it will feel like it at the time, and it can be really tough, but if you can step away from a project, or at least talk to the conductor and maybe have a few rehearsals where you're not playing but you're sat there with your part, you know, that kind of stuff, then yeah, take care of yourself, because your body is your job and you need it to be working. What did most of your friends do after graduating? It's a complete mix, actually. I'd say the majority, sort of the two biggest lines, were teaching and playing, for sure, amongst my year especially. And then some people have gone into classroom teaching, and then others have gone on to do completely different things. And for them, music college was great, but it kind of taught them that they didn't want to do music as a profession. A really close friend of mine actually went into working in libraries, and she does that and a bit of freelancing on the side, and you know, she's really enjoying the stability that can give. So yeah, it totally depends, but primarily teaching and playing were the two most popular routes, I guess. What are exams like? Hearing tests, writing stuff down, performing, etc. So in first year, you had a complete mix of essays, listening tests, harmony tests, and playing. And then, kind of like I said earlier, that sort of then became more weighted towards one or the other as you went through. So my exams started to become more weighted towards the chamber music side of things, because I had a string quartet that I, you know, was very established with, and I wanted to use that as my end of year, my final performance in my fourth year. I need that. So I kind of started going down that route. But in terms of things like hearing tests, so we had to do one where they would play something and then you have to write it out. We had to identify harmonies, and we had to write down the chords that went along with a particular piece. And what else did we have to do? We did like a harmony written paper. So that was a bit like, imagine a grade 5 theory paper, but harder. So that was that kind of vibe. And then performance wise, they were kind of sprinkled throughout the year. We generally had a playing exam in the new year, so kind of January, February time, and then we'd have another one in the summer. So yeah, and then we also had orchestral excerpts exams, so you'd have a bit like an audition. You'd have different little excerpts, you'd go in and they'd select a couple. We also had technical exams, so that was studies and then scales, and we only had to do those for the first 3 years. So if you passed your one in 3rd year, everyone was like, woohoo, I never have to do a technical again. So that was quite a big moment. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised at how varied the exams were. So I thought it was going to be sort of all playing, but actually there were a few other things sprinkled about, and the weighting was definitely more on the playing, so that was a much, much bigger percentage of your end mark, but the others did count. How do you network with people at the college? Just make friends and be nice. Basically, I mean, how you represent yourself is important. You are going to be working with these people for the rest of your life. Not everybody, because not everybody will go down the same career path as you, but a lot will, and the reputation that they can get of you from those 4 years is pretty hard to shift, I would say. I think it's definitely something that I've struggled against a little bit, just because at college I was not one of the best players by any means. I was actually playing catch up quite a lot. I hadn't been playing the viola very long. So that means that I've actually progressed a lot since leaving college. And I mean, I think we all have. So I sometimes find that people have that mental picture of me and my playing in their head, when actually I've moved on quite a bit since then, if that makes sense, if that's okay to say. But yes, so just make friends. Don't put too much pressure on networking, and definitely don't just be friends with the really, really good players. This happened quite a bit at college, I would say, in that the people that got the highest marks sort of only often took notice of each other, if that makes sense. And then often you'll find it's not the people who get the highest performance marks that end up being the fixers, who end up being the concert organisers and all of that kind of thing. So just make friends, be nice to everybody, and yeah, and you'll set yourself up in the best possible way for once you leave. But yeah, don't just focus on buddying up to the people that you think will help you out later down the line, because that can backfire. How competitive is it? It totally depended on the person. We had a few people that were super, super competitive, and then, like I kind of said earlier, most left people to it and didn't really focus on marks and stuff like that. But I know that each individual's experience of that can be very, very different. Music college is competitive in its very, very nature. I've said that before. You know, you're competing for places in orchestras, for different chamber spots, for placement opportunities and all that kind of thing. So it is competitive in its very nature, but everybody's in the same boat, and nobody wants somebody who just wants to put everybody down. Like that doesn't go down well in that kind of environment. So it is competitive, but don't let that put you off. What opportunities do you get whilst at music college? So this varies very much between the colleges, but most will have a placement scheme. So by this I mean you audition and then you will get put in with a professional orchestra for a week of rehearsals. Some placements then allow you to perform in the concerts. Now here we have the WNO placement, so Welsh National Opera, and then BBC Now, which is BBC National Orchestra of Wales. And I believe that neither of those, the placements mean that you then play in a concert. But obviously getting on these placements means that the orchestra gets to know you, which can put you in very, very good stead for getting a job with them later down the line. So yeah, those opportunities were very highly sought after. We also had a concerto competition, so that was a great opportunity for people who wanted to pursue more of a solo career. And then there were masterclasses a few times a term, and these were with incredible people. Like we had Jennifer Pike come in, and then we had Rachel Podger, we had Danny Phillips, Rupert Marshall-Luck. We had like a whole host of people that came in, and they were absolutely phenomenal. And those masterclasses were sort of done on merit a little bit, so we would selected for them by the head of strings, and the things that sort of went into that was, you know, do you come to concerts? Are you actively engaged in college life? Are your marks good? Are you working hard? All that kind of stuff sort of contributed to you getting a spot in one of those masterclasses. So yeah, there were a lot of opportunities actually, and again, I was impressed with how much there was. Do you think it's essential to have a music degree in today's climate? I don't know is the honest answer. I'm probably not the best person to answer that. I think it helps. I think it definitely helps. And the main thing to remember with a performance music degree especially is that you are effectively paying for the time and the practice you'll be able to do and the one-to-one lessons with your teacher and all that kind of stuff. You are literally paying for the opportunity to get better at your craft. So having that degree is kind of a endorsement of all of that effort that you've put in, if that makes sense. So it will always help. And I think, especially if you're applying for orchestral posts, then I would say it is essential. But like I said, I'm probably not the best person to answer that. If someone started learning later in their teens, is it too late to become professional? Absolutely not. It is never too late. And like I said, we had people at college who were quite a bit older because they'd started learning later. And I will say that you are at a slight disadvantage, potentially, and you will have to work extremely hard because there will be people around you that could have a good decade in their back pocket. So it is absolutely not too late. Never too late. But bear in mind that you will have to work really hard. But if you're prepared to do that, then absolutely go for it. Okay, and this will be the last question because I don't want this video to go on too long. But how expensive is it? So when I went, I was very lucky that I was before the fees kind of got put up. At the moment, for Royal Welsh, the undergraduate degree is £9,000 a year. For UK students, obviously for international, it's more. And then the London colleges are slightly more again. I think Royal College is like 9,250 or something like that. So yeah, it does depend ever so slightly on the college, but they all have it on their website, so just check them out. But it is expensive, but particularly in the UK, remember that you do have student finance, and people get really freaked out by that because they're like, oh no, it's this massive loan that I have to pay back. You pay it back so gradually, and you don't have to start paying it back until you're earning beyond a certain threshold. So please don't let the worry of that debt, I guess, put you off, because it's an amazing resource that we are very privileged to get. So yeah, take advantage of it because paying it back is not nearly as scary as it feels when you first work out how much you're going to owe at the end of it. So yeah, don't let that put you off, please, because there are resources out there to help you. Okay, I'm going to leave this video here. I hope that was helpful. I know I've done a video sort of similar to this before, but I just thought some of those questions were really helpful and they were definitely things that I didn't cover in my previous videos. So I will link the playlist to all my other music college related videos in the description bar. So if you are either applying, thinking of applying, or maybe you've just gotten your places through and you're not sure about where to go and you're kind of thinking through the whole business, then please do go and give those a watch. I hope I can be of help. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask me directly, come and follow me on Instagram. It's just Heathers_plan. Yeah, drop me a message. I would love to chat to you. And like I said, if you have enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to put out a video next week or not, just because Christmas. So yes, if there is a video next week, I will let you know, but generally I upload every Wednesday at 11 AM, and that will absolutely continue in the new year. So yes, if I don't see you before Christmas, Merry Christmas, have a lovely week, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.